NIO may not be a recognizable name in the US, but it's becoming a leading player in China's electric vehicle market.
We can really think of NIO as sort of the original Tesla of China.
They want to target the same market as BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Porsche, and they're essentially the only local OEM from China.
But the company has had its fair share of problems along the way. NIO has racked up over $6 billion in costs since starting in 2014.
It's been kind of a rocky few years. If you look back 2018, you saw tremendous growth, and then you ran into the worst downturn in our lifetimes for the China automotive market.
Just a year ago, the company was on the brink of collapse, but it managed to turn that around and become the world's fourth most valuable automaker.
NIO is in serious financial trouble. In fact, they needed a bailout from the Chinese government just to survive the first quarter of 2020. And here we are, today NIO valued in New York on par with Daimler.
Despite setbacks due to the coronavirus pandemic, the company has continued to grow. In the third quarter of 2020, it reached $628 million in sales and delivered up to 12,206 vehicles. However, the company still has a long way to go.
You see a market that's still emerging, still dominated by combustion engine, but EV is increasingly growing very quickly, especially in the second half of 2020.
The company was founded by William Li in 2014 as Next EV.
William Li made his first billion in the internet business and then was inspired by Tesla. In 2014, he went to the Paris Auto Show, met an executive from Ford Motor Company, Martin Leach. They connected immediately and they had a shared vision.
2 years later, it announced its first vehicle, a limited-run supercar called the EP9, as well as the introduction of the NIO brand.
They put together this phenomenal vehicle, handfuls of them only, but just to establish the brand and the reputation.
Like Tesla, NIO has distanced itself from the traditional automakers, associating more as a tech company.
They make no secret of the fact that they're a tech company first, and they're highly inspired by Tesla.
The cars have some high-tech touches, such as an integrated smart assistant.
They have this cute little thing called Nomi. It's an AI assistant, and you can give it commands to do virtually everything you want. Put the window up, put the window down, temperature, music changes. Let's take a selfie.
NIO has emphasized that it's a lifestyle brand. Owners get access to a social network and private social spaces called NIO Houses.
These gorgeous places called NIO Houses where owners gather to go to the library, have their kids play, drink coffee, hang out. It's just a house, a community. So that's one big way in which they've driven tremendous levels of loyalty.
And it's similar, I think, to what Tesla has done here, to what Porsche has done, for decades. You have people kind of associating the brand with more than just a vehicle, but a certain lifestyle.
NIO currently sells 3 vehicles in China: the ES8, a full-size SUV, the ES6, a mid-size SUV, and the EC6, a crossover coupe.
Not only is China the largest market for premium vehicles, it's also the largest market by far in the world for SUVs. The Chinese love their SUVs.
In the Chinese market, there are lots of affordable EVs, but NIO and Tesla are on the higher end.
NIO is targeting premium customers who like technology, and they saw what happened here with Tesla in the United States, that Tesla stole sales from BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. NIO is beginning to do the very same thing in its home market.
They really pride themselves on white glove service. For repairs, someone will literally come pick up your car. If you need to get charged, they have mobile charging trucks that will come and charge it, or someone will come pick it up.
One unique approach the company is taking is battery swapping. In 2018, it opened its first battery swap station in Shenzhen and has built 162 locations so far.
Within less than 10 minutes, you can swap out to a new battery and be on your way. Now, other people have tried that before. Tesla looked at it years ago and dropped it, but NIO seems to be convinced that this is the way to go and that they're staying with it.
But some are skeptical that battery swapping is the future of charging.
It's not really a super long-term solution. I would say it's a short, medium bridge until we can get batteries that can charge ultra fast.
More recently, NIO is now letting customers buy its cars without batteries, instead letting them lease the pack, paying a monthly fee.
They introduced a new battery as a service platform, which they claim makes their vehicles just as cost efficient to operate and use as an equivalent vehicle from, say, BMW.
In 2018, NIO went public on the New York Stock Exchange, raising $1 billion and valuing the company at $6.41 billion.
You sort of had this euphoric lead up to the IPO, and then you had disaster strike.
The entire auto industry was going through a slump in the last 18 months leading up to this summer.
Not only did the market decline, but profits also fell. In addition to that, the Chinese government started making noises about, hey, subsidies are not forever. We're going to make those go away too.
Faced with continued losses and insufficient revenue, NIO was forced to rein in its spending. It sold its Formula E racing team, and poor performance at the beginning of 2019 forced the company to delay its ET7 sedan. It was also dealing with a battery recall.
Through the end of 2019, NIO was struggling, and in the first quarter of 2020, NIO got to a point where they said, in order for us to survive, we require a bailout.
NIO received a $1.4 billion investment from the Chinese government for a 24.1% stake, as well as establishing a Hefei headquarters to support the region's EV development.
When the stock price came up again, they were able to secure some new funding and more or less pay off that loan. So they're not beholden to the government as they were.
The company was working on a Shanghai factory, but was forced to scrap it. Instead, it turned to JAC Motors to build the ES8 and the ES6. Through the joint venture with JAC Motors, it recently reached a milestone of 50,000 vehicles produced. But NIO's production output is still small, especially compared to Tesla's Shanghai production.
The gap is pretty wide. It's going to take a while for NIO.
China is the world's largest EV market, largely due to generous government subsidies and efforts to promote new energy vehicles.
China was determined to lead the world in electric vehicle technologies, and they put in place subsidies and other regulations to make sure that new startups like NIO would have the street paved with gold.
The government spent lots on subsidies, and there were a lot of companies that abused that policy to make it look like they were innovating and developing electric vehicles, but actually they weren't doing that much. And so when the government started to phase out that program, that affected the ability of a lot of EV companies to survive.
As the economy recovers, consumer interest in electric vehicles is growing.
Ironically, when Tesla started making the Model 3 in China, it was beneficial to all the EVs because it got people interested. It got buzz. It was a sort of halo effect.
In a recent survey of Chinese consumers, half of them said that they'd be open to buying an electric car.
As China's EV companies look to grow, they may enter international markets.
Going forward, NIO would look to expand globally, no question about it.
NIO said it plans to enter the global markets by 2023 and 2024, and would likely begin with Europe first.
I think they'll go to Denmark, Norway, maybe Netherlands first, given the consumer acceptance of EVs there, the subsidies, the government incentives.
But it may be a while before we see NIO in the US.
The Chinese would love to step inside the US market, but the reality is that in Washington, D.C., tensions between the US and China are at their worst in 50 years.
If the geopolitics were to change, maybe they would. But there's Chinese automakers that have wanted to enter the US for a while, and they've never really found a viable path.
Tariffs on Chinese cars currently at 27.5%, which would take their $60,000 car up to prices that no American would be willing to pay.
NIO is likely to benefit the most from domestic growth in the near term.
The monthly figures are showing more people are buying their cars. And if you're thinking about a future in which China is mandating, let's say a quarter of vehicles sold in the future must be electric. Chinese consumers are also getting more used to the idea of electric.
In recent months, NIO has seen impressive investor interest. Whether it can keep up this momentum is yet to be seen.
The extent to which the market is valuing these companies with pretty small volumes. We said 50,000 for NIO in an annual global market of 90 million, and yet to be valued on a par with Daimler, well above Ford or Nissan, the market sees something. Now, the market isn't infallible. Maybe investors have it wrong, but boy, it's worth taking a look at.